Grazie. Grazie mille.
Yeah. I'm going to Google. That's what it's which I think is very intense. Did you ever go there? I mean, if you're serious, that might
Good afternoon, or good evening. I'm not quite sure at 5:30 what I'm supposed to say, but welcome. My name is Patrick Scully, and I'm delighted to be here at Nancy. And I'm here with Nancy Mason-Hauser, who's there, and Clemens Kowalski, who's there, and Oscar Literature, where's Oscar?
Yeah.
Who's there. And we're fortunate to have had the opportunity to be here now for 2.5 weeks, working on the next version, the next iteration of this show that I've been working on in one way or another for 10 years, and in some ways since I was a junior in high school, I think when the seed first got planted. And it's a show about Walt Whitman. And what we're working on here is particularly, perhaps it's best understood as kind of a postmodern musical. You know, if you think of a theatrical musical where there's the story that happens on stage and then a bunch of singing and dancing happens and it sort of moves the show along, but then the singing and dancing stops and the show moves along again. This is somewhat in that direction, but the idea comes from the first time that this show was on stage was now about 17 months ago. And it was with 2 actors and 18 male dancers. And that entire process of all of the rehearsals and the performances, Nancy was part of the crew from the beginning as a dance videographer, recording it with the intention that at some point in the future there would be a version that would be just one actor on stage, and the dance would be reintegrated into the show via video projection. And so Clemens and Oscar are here working on the video projection aspects of it. And what we're going to be really curious to know from you is your experience of the dance in particular as it fits with the rest of this piece. And we'll have more specific questions for you later. But what I do want you to know is that we're really thinking about this as an open rehearsal, okay? There are layers that will be worked on after our process at Nancy is finished. More of the dramaturgy, more of me being directed specifically as an actor. But we had to get it to this point to get the dances up on the projections. For me, even as an actor, to figure out how do I live with all of these dancers here in a virtual world. But since this is an open rehearsal, if we mess something up, I might stop and go look at my script, or Oscar might say, Patrick, stop, you know, we need to go back 3 minutes, you just skipped something, and I have a cue in there that, so we're gonna do our best to get through this, but we may need to stop along the way, and if we do, that's because that's what you do when you're in rehearsal. So we're about to get started. Before we do, I just wanna express some thanks to the McKnight Foundation, which gave me the fellowship that connected me to Mancy, to Mancy for the invitation to come down here and have the time to work and explore. It's almost disorienting as an artist to have such a luxury of time to work. To the staff at Mancy, to other people who've been part of the entry points that Mancy has organized, and with particular thanks to Ben Gunter, who's been here offering theatrical advice all along. And then to my new friend Hannah, who's good friends with a friend of mine, Judith, back in Minneapolis, and to my old friend David, who knew me back in 1982 when I was living in a loft in downtown Minneapolis, back in the days when lofts were something that meant, well, you're lucky if there's plumbing, as opposed to it being something in a fancy apartment building now being built to sell to people as condos. So that said, we're going to go. Thanks to all of you, lastly, for coming and being an audience for us so that we can share this with a group of people, because you only really know the material once you have a time to do it a lot and do it in front of an audience and share it and bounce that off. So this is our first time with this, with anywhere near this number of people. Usually there's maybe 2 or 3 other people in the room at most. So thank you so much for coming and being part of this open rehearsal. We will have a short Q&A when it's all over, so if you can, we'd love it if you stay for that. Ready?
Good.
Head, neck, hair, ears, drop and tippet of the ears, eyes, eye fringes, iris of the eye, eyebrows, the waking or sleeping of the lids, mouth, tongue, lips, teeth, roof of the mouth, jaws and the jaw hinges, nose, nostrils of the nose, and the partition, cheeks, temples, forehead, chin, throat, back of the neck, neck slew, strong shoulders, manly beard, scapula, hind shoulders, and the ample side round of the chest, upper arm, armpit, elbow socket, lower arm sinews, arm bones, wrists and wrist joints, hand, palm, knuckles, thumb, forefinger, finger joints, fingernails, broad breast front, curling hair of the breast, breastbone, breast side, ribs, belly, backbone, joints of the backbone, hips, hip sockets, inward and outward round, man balls, man root, strong set of thighs, well carrying the trunk above, leg fibers, knee pan, upper leg, underleg, ankles, instep, foot ball, toes, toe joints, the heel.
Having calculated close, I find no sweeter flesh than sticks to my bones. published reviews. An American bard at last. You have come in good time, Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman, the begetter of a new offspring of literature. I like reading those, especially because I wrote them anonymously. During my lifetime, I defended myself. I had to. I did not gain acceptance in my own time, so I fell back on fond dreams of the future. And that future is here now. And so I've come back today to be with you, to set the record straight, so to speak. Given all that's transpired since I passed in 1892, this is necessary. I mean, we have made great progress since then, but not always easily. 1957, they're about to open a great new bridge between Philadelphia and Camden, New Jersey, to be named the Walt Whitman Bridge, but not without a fight. The Bishop of Camden instructs his entire flock to write to the Bridge Commission, warned them of the dangers of associating architectural landmarks with homosexuals. Fortunately, the counter-arguments were numerous and varied. And my favorite of all is this. If the church is so intent on not having architecture associated with homosexuals, they ought to tear down the Sistine Chapel. The counter-arguments prevailed, and the bridge was named after me, as have been 14 public schools in these United States. 14! Now, how many do you suppose have been named after Ginsburg? 0. Well, to be fair, the Berkeley Arts Elementary Magnet School does have an Allen Ginsberg poetry garden. And perhaps one day we can have a poetry slam. The Whitman Howlers, no, the Ginsberg Howlers versus the Whitman Comrades. 3rd grade choral readings of I have seen the best minds of my generation destroyed versus I sing the body electric. Oh, but I digress. It's my old habit of dreaming about the future. Let me go back, begin to amend the record. Leaves of grass. This is no book. Who touches this? Touches a man. Is it night? Are we here alone? It is I you hold, and who holds you. I spring from the pages into your arms. I feel 100 realities in me that words are not yet formed to represent. Men, like me, will gradually get to be more and more numerous, and then the words will follow. Manly friendship, the unfolding word of the ages, a word of the modern, a word en masse, a word of faith that never balks. a password, primeval, allowing me to speak in forbidden voices, stripping away veils. The words do not exist for me to write myself, to write my life. So I invent, trusting when language is needed, the words will surely follow. Now, I find that most men suffer a lack of language. The young men of these states are possessed of a wonderful tenacity of friendship, passionate fondness for their friends, and always a manly readiness to make friends. But they possess remarkably few words for the friendly sentiments. Such words do not thrive here amongst the muscular classes where the real quality friendship is always found. There are words that the muscular classes rarely use, have an aversion for. They never give words to their most ardent friendships. And yet I believe that the main purport of these states is to found a superb friendship, exalté, previously unknown, because I perceive that it waits, and has been, always waiting, latent in all men. Bellini, the finest in the world. Instructs his entire flock to write to the Bridge Commission, warn them of the dangers of associating architectural landmarks with homosexuals. Fortunately, the counter-arguments were numerous and varied. My favorite of all is this. If the church is so intent on not having architecture associated with homosexuals, they ought to tear down the Sistine Chapel. The counter-arguments prevailed, and the bridge was named after me, as have been 14 public schools in these United States. 14! Now, how many do you suppose have been named after Ginsburg? 0. But to be fair, the Berkeley Arts Elementary Magnet School does have an Allen Ginsberg poetry garden. And perhaps one day we can have a poetry slam. The Whitman Howlers, the Ginsberg Howlers versus the Whitman Comrades. 3rd grade choral readings of I have seen the best minds of my generation destroy versus I sing the body electric. Oh, but I digress. It's my old habit of dreaming about the future. Let me go back, begin to amend the record. Leaves of grass. This is no book. Who touches this? Touches a man. Is it night? Are we here alone? It is I you hold, and who holds you. I spring from the pages I feel 100 realities in me that words are not yet formed to represent. Men, like me, will gradually get to be more and more numerous, and then the words will follow. Manly friendship, the unfolding word of the ages, a word of the modern, a word en masse, a word of faith that never balks, a password primeval, allowing me to speak in forbidden voices, stripping away veils. The words do not exist for me to write myself, to write my life. So I invent, trusting when language is needed, the words will surely follow. Now, I find that most men suffer a lack of language. The young men of these states are possessed of a wonderful tenacity of friendship, passionate fondness for their friends, and always a manly readiness to make friends. But they possess remarkably few words for the friendly sentiments. Such words do not thrive here amongst the muscular classes where the real quality friendship is always found. There are words that the muscular classes rarely use, have an aversion for. They never give words to their most ardent friendships. And yet I believe that the main purport of these states is to found a superb friendship, exalté, previously unknown, because I perceive that it waits, and has been, always waiting, latent in all men. Bellini, the finest in the world. To be loved by strangers? Do you know the talk of those turning eyeballs? These yearnings, why are they? These thoughts in the darkness, why are they? All this inventing, when the Greeks already had language. But when I read of the brotherhood of lovers, how it was with them, how through life, through dangers, odium unchanging, long and long, through youth and middle and old age, how affectionate and unfaltering and faithful they were. Then I am pensive. I hastily put down the book and walk away, filled with the bitterest envy. I envy the ancient Greeks, their brotherhood of lovers, their world, their words. I inherit Greek as a code word, and a miserable Latin phrase, peccatum illud horribile inter Christianos non nominandum. Have you studied Latin? Neither have I, but I'll translate this for you. Peccatum, sin. Illud horribile, so horrible. Inter Christianos, amongst Christians, non nominandum, not named. The sin so horrible that Christians should not speak its name. Well, no wonder we English speakers are nervous talking about it, lest ideas spread to people who would not have had these ideas if they hadn't heard our words. The preeminent British jurist yes, here it is. Sir William Blackstone says of sodomy, the very mention is a disgrace to human nature. Listen to the silence. Who dares defy this? Jeremy Bentham. Yes, he writes, I have been tormenting myself for years to find sufficient ground for treating sodomy with the severity with which it is treated by all European nations. I find none. Bravo, Jeremy Bentham. Brave words, and written only one generation after Blackstone. Unfortunately, Mr. Bentham, you write these words, but you never publish them. Let's come back to the other side of the Atlantic for a lesson in American colonial history. One perhaps that your history teacher skipped. I'm going to read to you the words here of the Reverend Francis Higginson. He's writing in his journal on board the ship Talbot, sailing for New England. We examined 5 beastly, sodomitical boys which confessed their wickedness, not to be named. The fact was so foul, we reserved them to be punished by the governor when we came to New England. The governor sent the boys back to be punished in Old England as the crime deserved. In Old England, they would be hanged for a crime that could not be named. New England was quick to catch up with the old. Plymouth colony was the first to establish a death penalty for peccatum illud horribile, and New York colony was right on its heels, where one Jan Creoli was found guilty of the crime of sodomy. And his sentence? Choke him to death! And burn his corpse to ashes. Each of our 13 colonies has a death penalty for sodomy. Born on Long Island, not 10 miles away, across the Sound in Connecticut, they still had a death penalty for non nominandum. North and South Carolina don't get rid of the death penalty for it until well after the Civil War. What to do? To hell with the Puritans and all of their rules. I am naked by the 11th line of Leaves of Grass. Count with me. I celebrate myself. And what I assume, you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me, as good belongs to you. I loaf and invite my soul. I lean and loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. Houses and rooms are full of perfumes. The shelves are crowded with perfumes. I breathe the fragrance myself and know it and like it. The distillation would intoxicate me also, but I shall not let it. It has no taste. The atmosphere is not a perfume. It has no taste of the distillation. It is odorless. It is for my mouth forever. I am in love with it. I will go to the bank by the wood and become undisguised and naked to be in contact with me. The Puritans would outlaw nude bathing. Make me illegal in my own poem. Oh, and the police in Brooklyn are pouncing upon parties of young men and boys, arresting them, carrying them off to the station houses for the frightful crime, bathing. That miserable wretch, the mayor of Camden, has forbidden the boys to bathe in the river. Something objectionable in stripping off their clothes and jumping in the water. Fair, unsurpassed. When the Christians succeed at making nude bathing illegal, imagine their righteousness in going after sex. I learn how to hide things in plain sight. Loaf with me on the grass. I mind how we lay in June, such a transparent summer morning. You settled your head athwart my hips and gently turned over upon me, and parted the shirt from my bosom bone, and plunged your tongue to my bare stripped heart, and reached till you felt my beard, and reached till you held my feet. I calculate what I can write and what I cannot write. How and even where I can write it, avoiding jail in Boston or execution in Charlotte. Do any of you know Edward Carpenter? Ever heard of him? Oh, too bad. One of the best. When I say men like me will gradually get to be more and more Carpenter. We talk writer to writer. I tell him, very few people are in a position to perceive what lies behind Leaves of Grass. It lies behind almost every line, but concealed, studiedly concealed. Some passages left purposefully obscure. There's something in my nature furtive. Even apparently quite unconcerned, presently she finds a concealed spot. Furtively lays an egg and comes away as though nothing has happened. That's how I feel in writing Leaves of Grass. There are certain truths that it's necessary to envelop, to wrap up. Furtive. Like my poem, Once I Passed Through a Populous City. I have the original here from my notebook, and this segment reads, "But now, of all that city, I remember only the man who wandered with me there for love of me." But in the published poem it reads, "Yet now, of all that city, I remember only a woman." the man becomes a woman? Now, how do you suppose that happened? I mean, was it my fear? Or perhaps my faulty memory? Or maybe sort of en travesti, like a countertenor? Or maybe pressure from my publishers? If you had to pick one of those four, which would you choose? Doesn't really matter. They're all plausible explanations for my furtiveness. Now, I'm going to share with you something even more furtive. I have never and will never publish this. Fierce wrestler, do you keep your heaviest grip for the last? Will you sting me most, even at parting? Will you struggle even at the threshold with spasms more delicious than all before? Does it make you ache so to leave me? Do you wish to show that even what you did before was nothing to what you can do? Or have you and all the rest combined to see how much I can endure? Pass as you will, take drops of my life if that's what you're after, only pass on to someone else. For I can contain you no longer. I held more than I thought. I did not think I was big enough for so much ecstasy, or that a touch could take it all out of me. Now, if I won't publish this, how dare I criticize Bentham for not publishing his writing? Very well, I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes, including a fierce wrestler and a furtive old hen. The secret to survival is learning how to write in code, give clues, and conceal things at the same time. Like this. Among the men and women, the multitude, I perceive one picking me out by secret and divine signs, acknowledging none else. Some are baffled, but that one is not. That one knows me. Lover and perfect equal, I meant that you should discover me so by my faint indirections. And I, when I meet you, mean to discover you by the like in you. Lover and perfect equal. Would you like to see some photographs of my lovers? Yes.